Chapter 1951, Both of You Should Be Happy. He really didn't believe that the Zai family would be so shameless and didn't care about their reputation at all. Seeing that there were more people watching the excitement, Father Wei knew that it had begun to take effect. When other people rushed in, Father Wei hurriedly said, "Audie, don't be silly. Jia is still young. She can't do without a father. Your mom and I are already old. You can't let us send off our own child. Come down first. We can discuss everything. There's nothing that can't be resolved. If you don't want to get a divorce, then don't. You and Hua have been husband and wife for more than 10 years. I believe the two of you still have feelings for each other and Hua similarly can't bear to leave you as well. Everything can be resolved as long as you persuade Hua's parents. Listen to Dad, and come down quickly." "That's right. What is it that you can't come to terms with that you have to use your life as a joke? It's better to dismantle 10 temples than to destroy a marriage. Your in-laws shouldn't want to see their own daughter getting a divorce. Just discuss the conflicts between the both of you and resolve them." Other people didn't understand this situation much. It sounded that the person who wanted to commit suicide was in the midst of getting a divorce from his wife. Of course, this man didn't seem to want to get a divorce, and according to the man's father, neither did the woman. However, the woman's parents seemed to be quite powerful and insisted on separating this couple. "Come down first. It's extremely dangerous up there. It's not convenient for us to speak either. It doesn't sound like too big a problem. If you can't persuade your in-laws alone, we will all help you. It's better for a couple to make peace than break up. There are so many of us here to talk reason to them. We can do it." "That's right. Divorce isn't a big deal. If the two of you don't want to be separated, nobody, even birth parents, can be involved in this. Where's your wife? As long as you are of one mind, there's nothing to be worried about. Come down quickly." It was a fact that Weida and his parents led a miserable life recently. One look at them and it was clear they weren't in a good state. It was easier for people to sympathize with the weak. All three members of the Wei family weren't young anymore, especially Father Wei and Mother Wei, whose hair was white and faces were wrinkled. The only strong Weida was sitting on the railing of a tall building and looked like he no longer wanted to live. It was obvious that all public opinion leaned toward the Wei family and they criticized the Zai family for being too unkind. If the couple didn't want to be separated, who were the Zai family to join in the excitement and insist on their daughter getting a divorce? What kind of parents were they? Weren't they too cruel? A few people even asked Weida what his in-law's surname was and where they were from. They wanted to see for themselves such unreasonable people as well. Zai Hua wasn't planning to bother about Weida initially. Zai Yawai said that Weida wouldn't jump and was just trying to scare them at most. Furthermore, someone had already called the police, and this was taking place at the tall building opposite the court. Would a court be lacking police forces? As such, once the news was out, the police and the fire department were ready to save people. The police had already deployed their full force. Coupled with the fact that Weida didn't really want to die, the more he kicked up a fuss, the more their family didn't need to come forward. Weida might not want face, but their Zai family did. Upon hearing Zai Yawai say so, Zai Hua silently agreed to his attitude in dealing with things and didn't bother about Weida. She let him play a one-man show alone. It was just that when she heard the news spreading outside, Zai Hua could no longer tolerate it. Their Zai family was being lambasted although Weida was obviously the one who did wrong. Without saying another word, Zai Hua stood up and rushed outside. "Hua, Miao Jing tried to pull Zai Hua back. People outside were already saying such ugly words. If Hua went to see Weida at this point in time, it would definitely not be good. What if under the pressure of those people who weren't in the know, Hua decided not to get a divorce from Weida? Miao Jing was worried that Zai Hua would be kidnapped by her morals and suffer a big loss in silence. Zai Yawai pulled Miao Jing back. Zihua decided herself then that she wanted to marry Weide. Now that she wants to get a divorce today, she should bring out her courage. If she was so straightforward in getting married, the same should apply now that she's getting a divorce. Let her resolve this matter by herself. Divorce? That wasn't embarrassing. As long as Zihua did things in an upright manner, there was nothing she couldn't say to everyone in an open manner. The Wei family would show their true colors sooner or later. She's already a mother now. You should let her experience some things herself so that she knows our difficulties back then. I don't have grievances that she misunderstood the both of us back when we were young. I'm doing this for Jiajia as well. After they get a divorce, Jiajia will definitely be living with Zihua in our family. If Zihua doesn't grow up, who will Jiajia rely on in the future? Could it be the both of us? Even if there was Zisheng, the uncle, his care for Jiajia would be limited once he has his own family and children. Zihua is the only one Jiajia could always rely on. As such, we have to let go. Regardless of whether it was for their daughter or granddaughter, Zihua was the only one who could resolve this. Blindly protecting them wasn't loving them but harming them. When Zihua was young, they had protected Zihua so much that she wasn't good at recognizing people and decided to follow Weide. It was good to experience a rough fall as well. In the remaining decades, even if he and Miao Miao were no longer around, he believed that Zihua wouldn't have any major issues and would raise Jiajia, her daughter, well. Ziyawai already tried to reason with her. Aside from listening, there was nothing else Miaojing could do. She only hoped that after today, Zihua would no longer have any relationship with Weide and that they wouldn't have any interaction in the future. Even if Hua was as tough as a boy since young, she couldn't handle torments like this again regardless of how strong she was. Old man, look! Our daughter-in-law is here. The moment Zihua appeared, Mother Wei was overjoyed. They had an in-law relationship for over 10 years, but this was the first time Mother Wei looked at Zihua so happily. Hua, you're finally here. We only have Ada as a son. We're all a family. Can we sit down and talk about the issues together to resolve them? If Ada is gone, the both of us can't live anymore. You have such a good relationship with Ada. He will definitely listen to whatever you say. Hua, let Ada come down. I'm about to have a heart attack seeing him like this. When everyone heard that the main character was here, they stared at Zihua with interest. Yes, this is between the two of you. As long as you don't have that intention, you don't have to listen too much to your parents. Both of you should be happy. You're already a grown-up. Could it be that you don't know what kind of life you want? Chapter 1952, Child Bride. Zihua's face was dark. She looked at Weide, who was full of hope and love, sarcastically. Weide, you want to commit suicide? Hua, I don't want to get a divorce. I can't live without you. As long as we don't separate from each other, I'll listen to whatever you say in the future. I'll do whatever you ask me to. I promise to work hard so that your parents will like me. I know I haven't done well in the past 10 years, so your parents don't accept me. However, Hua, the marriage is between the two of us. You can't leave me because of your parents. Tisk. Are there still such parents in this world? That's too overboard. Where are they from? Why are they so arrogant? How can they insist on their daughter getting a divorce? These old people are too horrible. Everyone's words were biased toward Weide, criticizing the Zai family badly. Zihua was so angry that she couldn't wait to reach out and push Weide down hard. A shameless person like Weide would be wasting fresh air by living. He was better off dead. Weide, you can only coax outsiders with your words. What has it got to do with my parents that we're getting a divorce? Since when was our relationship good? If that was the case, would you sleep with your adopted sister behind my back at the house that I bought? If our relationship was good, would you have given birth to a son with your adopted sister and hidden his identity from me so that I would raise him up on your behalf as I'm the so-called aunt? We have been husband and wife for over 10 years. Our relationship is so good that a few months ago, you let me catch you in bed with another woman with my own eyes? Wei, tell me. How good is our relationship? She had already lost him. Zihua didn't mind losing more. Wei said it like they had no contradictions between them and that it was purely because the Zai family didn't find Wei, the son-in-law, pleasing to the eye that they wanted her to get a divorce. Sure, they wanted to shed all pretenses of cordiality, right? They could do that together. Let's see who was more shameless. Talk reason? She loved to talk reason to others. As long as they understood the truth of the matter as to why she was getting a divorce with Wei, could Wei still expect someone to stop him from committing suicide? Wei, you hid your adopted sister's and son's identities from me so that I would raise them for you for over 10 years. Are you so used to lying that you treat everyone as fools? Do you treat me as a 3-year-old? If there wasn't anything wrong with you, would I get a divorce? Back then, my parents didn't like you as they felt that you didn't treat me sincerely and wholeheartedly. I was stupid to be fooled by you. It is proven that one will suffer from not listening to an old man's advice. Forget that I have taken care of your parents. I even helped you take care of your mistress and the son you had with your adopted sister. Tell me. Is our relationship so good that we still need to be husband and wife? The faces of those people who were still on Wei's side previously turned green. They felt that their faces hurt and they were so stunned that they couldn't say anything. What a powerful reversal! They thought that the in-laws were too overbearing and didn't fancy the son-in-law, thus forcing the loving couple to get a divorce and making the man feel like he couldn't survive any longer. It was obvious that this man was a scumbag. On top of the fact that his wife had raised the family, he even got together with another woman and had a son behind his wife's back. Upon thinking that the mistress was the man's adopted sister, the kind-hearted onlookers looked at Wei in disdain. Even if she wasn't his birth sister, an adopted sister was still a sister. Rabbits don't eat the grass by their burrows. To put it bluntly, this was incest. What a scumbag! Women were the first to react. They were filled with a common hatred. They hated a scumbag like Wei, who cheated and played with other women behind his wife's back, the most. If it were them, would they still keep such a man by their side to celebrate the new year together instead of divorcing him? Of course it was better to get a divorce as soon as possible. Another look at him and they would feel nauseous. After knowing that Wei was a scumbag and not an affectionate man, many women immediately lost the mood and walked away. A scumbag like him wasn't willing to get a divorce as he wanted to continue leeching off the other party for life. It was obvious that this woman's family was rich. The man didn't want to get a divorce not because he couldn't bear to leave his wife and child, but because he was reluctant to part with his wife's money. Men had more complicated thoughts than women. Men who were upright would definitely look down on a man like Wei, who had relied on his wife to support the family and had an affair behind his wife's back. Men who were slightly scheming felt that Wei was a fool. It was difficult for him to marry an outstanding woman with looks, money, and background. He could have saved decades of struggle in his life. Wei didn't cherish the blessed life that they couldn't even ask for, and he even let his wife catch him and his mistress in bed. If it were them, they would definitely not do such a stupid thing. They could have spent the wads of cash in their hands however they liked. Misunderstanding. That's all a misunderstanding. Father Wei's face turned pale. Zihua had aired their dirty laundry to everyone so openly. Not only would their Wei family be embarrassed, but the Zai family wouldn't be any better. After all, Zihua was the one who was betrayed and abandoned. Hua, you've misunderstood. Xiao Wei. It's like this. We never knew that Xiaomei had such thoughts about Ade. You saw them in bed as per her scheme. Xiao Wei's birth was also part of her scheme. All in all, Ade wasn't a willing party to be sleeping with Xiaomei. Xiao Wei, the son, was also just an accident. It had nothing to do with Ade. Father Wei felt that if he said so and as long as Zihua believed it, she shouldn't be as angry with Weida as before. At this time, Father Wei didn't dare say that Wei Wei had nothing to do with Weida. In the past 2 times, Zihua's lawyer had already produced the DNA confirmation report between Weida and Wei Wei. Although there wasn't 100% in medicine, the report had an accuracy of 99.9%. It was already accepted by the court as evidence, and they had agreed that Weida was Wei Wei's father. Even the court had said so. At this time, if Father Wei continued to deny, he would just be deceiving himself. You can't force an ox to bend its head to drink. Your Wei family has a good conscience. For no reason, you have adopted a girl to be your adopted daughter. Who are you trying to coax? Do you find the evidence we have presented not clear and obvious enough? I have a bunch of testimonies from your fellow villagers. More than 10 years ago, a wedding banquet was held in the countryside to celebrate Wei Xiaomei becoming your daughter-in-law. She was your family's child bride. Child brides actually existed. Chapter 1953, Go to Hell. You hid your relationship with Wei Xiaomei. That's a fraudulent marriage. There's no room for discussion. Today's the final trial anyway. Weida, to tell you the truth, I don't care if you jump down or not. We must get a divorce. I'm stepping out to say so much today to pay for the decision I've made blindly when I was young. A lot of people know who has done who wrong. Indeed, I should pay the price for being blind when I was young. However, if you bring in my family again and smear their reputation, Weida, I warn you. It'll be a life for a life at most. If you don't jump, I'll push you down. Zihua was really mad. She was not a good-tempered person to begin with when she was young. Now that she was forced into anxiousness, the temper she had restrained for more than 10 years exploded. There was no ambiguity at all. Zihua was really sick and tired of Weida's shameless tricks. The more unbearable Weida's performance was, the more Zihua understood her ignorance and reckless behavior when she was young. If it wasn't for her family pampering her, she wouldn't have fallen out with her family just to marry Weida, this scumbag. Back then, everyone in her family told her that Weida wasn't a good person, that he had a lot of tricks up his sleeve, and that his feelings for her weren't true. She didn't listen to a word at all. She was raised by Old Master Zai since she was young. However, until the day Old Master Zai died, he didn't forgive her for marrying Weida. When Old Master Zai left, Zihua was very upset and angry. She didn't understand why until his last breath, Old Master Zai didn't try to accept Weida for the sake of her happiness or help her persuade her parents and Zai Sheng. As long as Old Master Zai was willing to, she believed that her family would listen to him. Old Master Zai left with regrets. This made her feel even guiltier. Zihua couldn't help but think if Old Master Zai did this deliberately to punish her for insisting on marrying Weida. However, at this time, Zihua regretted it so much that she wanted to slap herself numerous times for having such thoughts back then. Old Master Zai had seen through Weida's true colors and was afraid that she would be hurt. That was why until his last breath, Old Master Zai was still the most worried about her, the granddaughter. She felt that her family favored boys over girls and valued Zai Sheng more than her. However, in the end, the one who made her family worry the most was her. The most heartless person was also her. She had disappointed her family repeatedly. However, when she ran into trouble, only her family stood by her side and accompanied her through the difficulties. Indeed, the young her was a heartless person who couldn't tell right from wrong. Sister, don't do that. His life isn't as valuable as yours. It's not worth it. It was easy for them to favor Zihua instead. Compared to how unclear Weida was, Zihua was crystal clear. Haven't the firefighters downstairs placed a safety air cushion? Just let him jump down. He might not die, but since this is such a tall building, if he doesn't jump down properly, it's still possible for him to be disabled. However, who cares about his life and death? Let's go. Their kindness was misused and they were being played like fools. Upon thinking that they were deceived by Wada and that they had nearly helped a big scumbag, they became unhappy. They wanted to be good people and do good things. However, it was undesirable if they did bad things with good intentions. Zihua sniffed and forced the tears in her eyes back. Even if the tears weren't for Wada, she wasn't willing to reveal such a weak side in front of Wada anymore. Today's the final trial. I won't stop you if you want to jump down. It's all up to you. It was better if Wada didn't turn up. That would be considered contempt of the court. Wada didn't need to think of getting any benefits. After making things clear, Zihua really ignored Wada. She turned around and left. Hua, don't go. It's all a misunderstanding. You have been husband and wife with Ada for more than 10 years. Both of you have Jia as well. This family can't be separated. How do we live if that's the case? You can't just divorce Ada because of a misunderstanding. Those villagers ought to be struck by lightning. They are envious that we are leading a good life, so they deliberately said those words to deceive you. Xiaomei's really our adopted child, not a child bride. We didn't hold any wedding banquet. They are lying. After they go to hell, their tongues will be pulled out. Hua, don't be fooled by those people and separate from Ada. They are just unhappy that we're leading a good life. Don't be fooled. If she knew who had said those words to Zihua, she would take a chopper and rush to their houses. Stopping someone from being rich was akin to killing one's parents. If the Wei family couldn't lead a good life after losing such a good daughter-in-law like Zihua, then nobody needed to think of having a good time. Until now, Mother Wei was still saying such words to coax her like a fool. Aside from laughing at herself for being completely stupid in the past, what else could she do? If not for her being too stupid in the past, would the Wei family have treated her like a fool and deceive her? Mother Wei used to be a farmer back in the countryside. However, after enjoying the blessings in the city for more than 10 years, she had gradually lost her strength. Indeed, Zihua was a female. However, when she was young, she was a female soldier in the army. Over the past 10 years, she hadn't really given up on training. If they really wanted to compete on strength, even Father Wei or Wada was not as strong as Zihua, let alone Mother Wei. As such, Zihua couldn't be bothered with Mother Wei's harassment and absurd reasoning. She pulled away from the hand Mother Wei was using to tug at her clothes and walked away with a gust of wind. Mother Wei was forced to let go. Zihua's strength made Mother Wei feel that she was in pain. Hua, Mother Wei couldn't chase after her. She cried and made a fuss. She sat on the ground, patted her thigh, and cried. This family's going to be separated. It's going to be gone. Hua was actually so cruel to Ada. She didn't care about their husband and wife relationship and even asked Ada to die. Hey, you, are you still jumping down? After creating such a big commotion, you should jump down for us to see. Nobody was a fool. Initially, there were still people who wondered if Wada was going to jump down or not. After this happened, everyone understood. Wada had done something wicked and his wife wanted a divorce. He didn't want a divorce, thus he used committing suicide as a scare tactic. Wada was a big man. There was really no other way for him but to use the tactic of committing suicide to force Zihua and the Zai family. Chapter 1954, Losing Money to Prevent Misfortune. They didn't manage to force the Zai family to retreat, and they even got scolded by Zihua and were seen as a joke by outsiders. He felt that his life was over once he got a divorce. His hard work in the past 2 decades would go to waste. It wasn't known if he was triggered by others or that Wada really wanted to die. Wada closed his eyes and really let go of the hand holding the railing. With a bang, he scared quite a few people. Damn! He really jumped. The person who was digging at him previously didn't look good. He shrank his neck and wanted to leave. He thought that man wouldn't dare to jump. Who knew he really jumped down? However, this had nothing to do with him. Even if he didn't say anything, didn't that man want to jump down anyway? Audie! Mother Wei shouted heartbreakingly. She hurried over and leaned on the railing to take a look. The height made Mother Wei feel dizzy. Father Wei hurriedly caught hold of Mother Wei. Don't worry. It's all right. Wait is fine. Just like what the onlookers said before, the fire department had already laid a large inflatable cushion downstairs. It couldn't kill anyone. What nobody knew was that Father Wei was actually the one who disguised his voice and made the call to the fire department. It was better to be safe than sorry. No matter when it was, Father Wei never wanted to lose Weide, his son. Even if Weide really had to jump, he could prove to the Zai family and Zai Hua that he was determined to turn over a new leaf. He didn't expect that not only did this jump fail to express Weide's attitude toward the Zai family, but Weide had jumped down as he was triggered by onlookers. Father Wei's face turned dark. He was feeling regretful for agreeing to his son to do this and to fool around with Weide. The news of Weide's jump reached the Zai family. It was just that back then, it was considered a contempt of court as the Wei family was absent. Moreover, this was the final trial. Both parties had already submitted all the evidence and materials that should be submitted. Even if Weide and the Wei family didn't appear, the court's decision was not affected. After hearing the court's ruling that she was divorced from Weide, Zai Hua felt that a mountain had been taken off her back. She and Weide were no longer husband and wife. She no longer had to face those messy affairs of the Wei family in the future. When the Zai family received the answer that they wanted, they were stopped by someone on their way home. Mother Wei cried. Hua Hua, you have been husband and wife with Audie for more than 10 years. You can't ignore him at this time. It's just a misunderstanding. You can't fall for Wei Xiaomei's tricks and misunderstand him. To prove his innocence, Weide had jumped down from the building. He's already sent to the hospital now. He seems to have fractured his leg bone. Hua Hua, you have to save Audie. After all, Audie is your husband and Jiajia's father. They initially thought that everything would be alright since there was a huge inflatable cushion at the bottom. Father Wei thought that his son was a soldier who usually had more difficult training in the army. Since he could come up with this idea, he should know it better in his heart. How did Father Wei know that Weide no longer valued his skills after being the platoon leader, which was all thanks to him being the Zai family's son-in-law? Furthermore, there was a huge gap between thinking and reality to begin with. Weide didn't expect his skills to have deteriorated so much as well. He had jumped from a higher distance and under harsher conditions in the past, but nothing had happened to him then. Who knew that he didn't jump well today? Although he landed on the cushion, he suffered a fracture. Weide didn't manage to create a scandal where the old chief forced his son-in-law to his death. Instead, he fractured his leg bone. Indeed, even God wasn't willing to pay attention to him and couldn't care about his life or death. So? He was the one who wanted to jump down. I didn't push him. Why must I go and see Weide? Did I owe him? Zai Hua didn't understand the theory behind the Wei family's words. She had never seen a villager's inferiority complex in the Wei family before. Instead, Zai Hua found it an eye-opener that the Wei family was always so self-confident. Mother Wei wiped her tears. Hua Hua, you can't be so heartless. After all, you and Audie were husband and wife for more than 10 years. How can you leave him in the lurch? Audie fractured his bone and needs to undergo surgery. Our family didn't have the money. If they didn't pay the hospital, they wouldn't perform the operation. Audie still wanted to go back to the army. If he didn't take care of his fracture and that resulted in a physical disability, even if Audie was still the son-in-law of the old chief's family, it would be impossible for him to return to the army. Hua Hua, even if Audie did wrong, he has received his punishment. His bone is fractured. He jumped down the building just to prove to you that he really knows that he is in the wrong. We are all a family. Give Audie a chance. You don't wish for Jiejie to be fatherless, right? Don't worry. As long as you forgive Ada this time, he would definitely not do anything sorry to you in the future. I will dote on you like you are my birth daughter. If Ada treats you badly, I will be the first to beat him to his death. Upon hearing what Mother Wei said, Zihua knew that the Wei family had not given up yet. The more the Wei family was like this, the colder Zihua's heart became. The Wei family didn't really think that she, Zihua, was good and that they couldn't bear to leave her, the wife and daughter-in-law. The Wei family was obviously reluctant to part with the benefits she brought along. No one surnamed Wei treated her sincerely. She had actually lived in such a family environment for more than 10 years. Upon thinking about this, Zihua only found it incredible. Enough. You mean that Weida was sent to the hospital with a fracture, but you don't have the money to pay the bills, right? I'll pay the hospital fees and wouldn't let Weida end up with a physical disability. However, don't thank me. I'm doing this for Jiejie. She no longer had any feelings for Weida. However, she knew clearly about the Wei family's situation. Without her, Weida was the only labor force of the Wei family. If anything happened to Weida, the Wei family really couldn't go on with their lives. Zihua didn't care about the Wei family's life and death. However, who asked her to be unlucky to have a relationship with the Wei family? Furthermore, these people were her daughter's grandparents. For her daughter, Zihua couldn't watch Weida become physically disabled. Otherwise, in the years to come, such a Wei family and Weida would only become huge burdens for Jiejie. Zihua was treating it as losing money to prevent misfortune. You people surnamed Wei, don't come and find me or appear in front of me again in the future. Jiejie is Weida's daughter. However, Jiejie is still a student and she needs to study. Chapter 1955, No Need to Fret. I'll fully respect Jiejie's personal opinion for the future. Goodbye. They wanted her to reconcile with Weida? Unless she was dead, the Wei family didn't have to continue dreaming. When Zihua was dealing with this matter, Zai Yayawai and Miao Jing remained silent throughout. However, both of them didn't deny Zihua's words either. They assumed a tacit attitude. The family of three got in the car only after Zihua had dealt with the matter. Miao Jing let out a long sigh. All's good now. Everything's over. The skies have cleared up after a storm. Our lives will be good now. The Wei family was really a mess. She thought of how simple and innocent her daughter was when she was young, where she had a fiery temper and was always straightforward. After spending all her time in the Wei family, she became more tactful. As a mother, Miao Jing hoped that her daughter could always be so simple and happy. However, that wasn't the case as her daughter was also a mother now. Her daughter should have some changes and improvement. Zihua was someone who lived up to her words. Mother Wei's pleas were of no avail. Father Wei knew Zihua's attitude when he saw Mother Wei return home alone. That woman is too ruthless. She's really leaving us in the lurch. Does she really want Jiejie to be a fatherless child? Will she be happy only then? He had seen quite a number of women, but this was the first time he met someone as ruthless as Zihua. The matter between Ada and Wei Xiaomei wasn't that big a deal or that serious a mistake. All these years, Zihua was the only wife of Ada on the surface. Since when did the Wei family not give Zihua face or embarrass her? Regardless of whether it was at home or outside, he had given Zihua quite a lot of rights. They should really let Zihua go to their countryside and take a look at how other women were as daughters-in-law. People in the city were temperamental. They didn't even have the qualities a wife should possess. If Zihua were to be a wife for someone in the countryside, a woman like her would have been long dealt with miserably. Their Wei family was too kind. Ada had pampered Zihua so much that she was lawless and didn't take her man seriously. When Ada was with Zihua, he should have given her a beating if she was disobedient. After all, which woman wasn't scared after being beaten? Father Wei was an old farmer by nature. He had seen a lot of men beating up women in the countryside since he was young. After being beaten up, not only would the woman not throw tantrums, but she would even have to continue serving her man. As such, he always felt that this was the norm. In the Wei family, Weida didn't even touch a single strand of Zihua's hair. He even let her throw tantrums. This was a situation where the daughter-in-law was extremely pampered. However, who asked Zihua to be born to a good family? They could only continue to pamper her. What Father Wei didn't know was that having grown up in such an environment with such a mindset, Weida had always seen how he had hit Mother Wei when he was young. Of course, when Weida was angry and couldn't control his temper, he might have laid a hand on Zihua as well. It was a pity that Zihua wasn't the kind of woman who didn't have the ability to fight back. On the contrary, Zihua's physical fitness and skills were much better and stronger than Weida, the husband. Weida subjecting Zihua to domestic violence? Oh, please. Zihua being good-tempered and not subjecting Weida to domestic violence was already her biggest restraint and change in temper after she married Weida. That might not be the case. Mother Wei heaved a sigh of relief. She said that Ada is Jiajia's father, after all. She will pay for Ada's surgery fees on account of Jiajia. Before coming back, I did ask around. Indeed, someone had paid for his fees. Ada should be receiving treatment now. That's good. Upon hearing that there was money and his son was receiving treatment, Father Wei's looks became better. Aside from this, did Zihua say anything else? Zihua was considered to have the self-awareness of being someone's wife since she was still willing to pay for the bills. Mother Wei cried. What else could she say? Today's the final trial. Didn't the lawyer say that we don't stand a chance at winning? This happened to Ade, and no one from our family was present in court. The divorce is done. Zihua is no longer related to our family. She's no longer Ada's wife. Without this daughter-in-law, she would no longer have nice clothes to wear. She also couldn't eat and drink all day at home and lead a good life easily without labor. It's that troublemaker Wei Xiaomei's fault. What's wrong with her? She's such a slut. Xiao Wei's already a child of that age, but she's still feeling coquettish. She has harmed Ada and our family. Will she die if she has to live without a man for a day? How dare she seduce Ada at home? Without Wei Xiaomei, how would our family end up in this state today? Without Wei Xiaomei, she would still be living in a big house and wearing pretty clothes. She would even have the chief's daughter calling her mother-in-law. How would it be like now, where her son lost his job, his future was gone, and their family didn't even have the capability to continue living in this city? If I had known that Wei Xiaomei would cause our family to be in such a pitiful state, I shouldn't have agreed to you adopting Wei Xiaomei back then. I should have ignored her. She regretted letting Wei Xiaomei marry her son and give birth to Xiao Wei back then the most. If her son was gone, what use would a grandson be to her? As long as Zihua was around, even if Ada only had Jiajia as a daughter, that was nothing. At the very most, they could take in a son-in-law when Jiajia grew up. In that way, wouldn't Jiajia's child be surnamed Wei as well? What mattered wasn't a grandson or a granddaughter, but who the grandson's or granddaughter's mother was. Alright, that's all in the past. Stop mentioning it. The most important thing now is Ada's surgery. Besides, what shall we do in the future? If they really had to return to the countryside, let's not talk about if he still had the skills to farm. What Father Wei couldn't accept the most was that he would be returning with humiliation. He thought of how his son had picked him up to stay in the city. All the villagers were looking at him with eyes full of envy. It could be said that that was the moment Father Wei was most proud of in his life. If he had to return in a desperate manner now, he couldn't pass the hurdle in his heart. He could totally imagine how the people in the countryside would gather and mock him if they knew the reason for his return. However, if they didn't return, there was no place for them to go. Regardless of how bad their hometown was, at least there was a small 3-story building for them. After returning to their hometown, they didn't need to worry about where their family would live. Chapter 1956, Jia. What else can we do? Let's go back. Mother Wei, who was feeling especially tormented, shed tears. I can see that this time, Zihua is really ruthless. Ada can't even return to the army now. Everything in Pingcheng is expensive. We won't be spending money. We will be burning money. After returning to the countryside, we can lead our lives easier. In Mother Wei's heart, her son's life was more important than having a good life. Initially, they just wanted to scare the Zai family so that they wouldn't dare to fight this divorce lawsuit. Who knew that her son actually committed suicide in the end? Although he didn't die, he had a fracture. Upon thinking of how pale her son looked when he was sent to the hospital, Mother Wei felt heartache. Let's go back to our hometown. We can't stay in this place anymore. Indeed, after Zihua left, the Wei family, who came from the countryside, didn't have the means to continue living in the big city. Mother Wei always thought that their Wei family was completely different. However, once the divorce took place, Mother Wei realized that their family was never from the city. As such, they were immediately returned to their original state. I was so frightened by what happened today that I didn't even know how I arrived at the hospital. If Ada does this again, I don't have to live anymore. I might as well just die together with Ada. You have said it as well. Zihua's not an ordinary woman. Their family plays hard tactics. I don't wish for anything else but for our family to be complete and Ada to live well. She didn't have money, but she had her son and grandson. As long as these two men were still alive, there was still hope for the Wei family in the future. On the contrary, if they continued to stay in Pingcheng to keep an eye on the Zai family and fight with them to the end, she was afraid that she would lose either her son or grandson in the end. She could have another grandson again if she was gone. However, if her son was gone, there was really nothing left. Upon hearing what Mother Wei said, Father Wei's face darkened. Even if he was unwilling, he couldn't say anything to refute Mother Wei's words now. As long as they had the ability to continue living in Pingcheng, then it's fine if he wasn't willing to leave. However, their family had lost this ability, and that was why they shouldn't let go of Zihua. Okay, let's not talk about this anymore. Let's see how Ada's surgery went. We can see Ada's decision for everything after he has woken up. He was already old and no longer the decision maker of this family. Everything would be decided by Ada. Zihua transferred money over and Weida received medical treatment in time. His fractured leg was naturally saved. As long as he recuperated well, Weida could recover to his original state before he was injured within half a year. After Weida woke up, the first thing he heard was that he was already divorced from Zihua. Mother Wei wiped her tears. Ada, to me, you being alive is much more important than anything else. Ada, let's return to the countryside. Life in Pingcheng was really something that they, as villagers, couldn't afford. It cost a lot of money to rent a house. Vegetables in the city were more expensive than meat in the countryside. Zihua used to be in charge of these. She only needed to cook and eat. One didn't know how expensive oil and salt were until they had to pay for them. Only when Zihua was gone did Mother Wei truly realize how much their daily expenses would be for a year if they were to continue living in Pingcheng. One only knew how good the other party was after losing her. As she started to manage this family, Mother Wei subconsciously realized that Zihua had sacrificed so much and spent so much money on this family. Even if everyone from their family went out to work, they couldn't earn the same amount of money at all. Weida gritted his teeth. His feeling of unwillingness was much stronger than Father Wei's. It was so difficult for him to finally walk out of the countryside and into the big city to be a company commander of the army. He had to go back with nothing now? Wouldn't the people from his hometown mock him? Even if he could continue living after returning to his hometown, it was afraid that he would never be able to raise his head or straighten his back anymore. This was definitely not how he, Weida, should be living. He should be upright and a big shot everyone looked up to. Dad, Mom, after my leg's better, both of you head back first. I'll stay in Pingcheng for the time being. Nothing was impossible. More than 10 years ago, when those people in the army knew that he was together with Zihua, they all laughed at him, saying that she was way out of his league and that he was just dreaming. And then? Not too long later, he married Zihua and they had a daughter, Jiajia. The Zai family was stubborn. After Zai Sheng divorced Chu Chenexai, he didn't find another partner all these years. Even if the court ruled today that he was divorced from Zihua, she might not find another partner after the divorce, just like her brother. As time passed by, he didn't believe he couldn't win over Zihua and make her have a change of mind. Most importantly, even if he was really unsuccessful and couldn't be husband and wife with Zihua anymore, that was nothing. He still had Jiajia, their daughter. He didn't believe that Jiajia would ignore him if anything happened to him. If he ran into some trouble, Jiajia, as his daughter, would have to help him. It was fine that Jiajia was young and had limited abilities. As long as Jiajia knew how to go to the Zai family for help and did a great job at crying and begging the Zai family, he might be able to enjoy the special treatment that he couldn't receive from Zihua back then. As such, Zihua wasn't his last trump card. Without Zihua, he still had Jiajia, their daughter. Perhaps in the Zai family's eyes, Jiajia was even more favored than Zihua. As long as there was Jiajia, it wasn't a total loss for him. Regardless of whether he had treated Jiajia well in the past, he was still Jiajia's father in this lifetime. Jiajia didn't need to think about getting rid of him. You're not going back. From Weida's eyes, Father Wei knew that his son was not willing to give up. You're trying to. Jiajia. Oh, yes. There was still Jiajia, their granddaughter. How did he forget about her? He usually only cared about his grandson. Who knew that during critical times, the most reliable person was actually Jiajia, his granddaughter. Jiajia was surnamed Wei. The Wei family's future depended on Jiajia. I think that's possible. Jiajia is surnamed Wei. She might even be more capable than Zihua. Ade, after you stay behind, you have to think of ways to meet Jiajia and communicate with her. Let's leave the past behind. Jiajia is still young and you're her father. As long as you treat her better, she will remember you as her father. Children were forgetful. In the past, Ada only treated Xiao Wei well and treated Jiajia ordinarily. Chapter 1957, Not in the Wrong. He didn't believe that Jiajia didn't crave Ada's attention. Now that Ada was willing to give Jiajia all his fatherly love, Jiajia was bound to be happy. Once they had a good father-daughter relationship, on account of Jiajia, the Zai family wouldn't treat Ada too badly. What if Ada had the chance to return to the army again as a company commander and even get a promotion? Upon thinking about these possibilities, Father Wei's looks improved. Ada, after this incident, we have sorted out our thoughts. Even if Jiajia is only a granddaughter, she's the second most useful person in our family aside from Zihua. So be it that she's a girl. Xiao Wei's still my grandson. We cannot go too overboard and treat them unfairly. I'm afraid that Jiajia's petty, just like her mother. We have been magnanimous enough with Xiao Wei as well. Once bitten, twice shy. Zihua had such a huge reaction toward Wei Xiaomei. Now that the relationship between Wei Wei and Weida has been exposed, Father Wei was worried that Jiajia wouldn't be able to face Wei Wei the same way as before. For the future of the Wei family, he could only choose to sacrifice his grandson. Furthermore, over the years, compared to the children from their hometown, Xiao Wei had led a good life and enjoyed the blessings that others couldn't. This was all thanks to him being a child of the Wei family. They didn't do anything sorry to Xiao Wei. Dad, don't worry. I understand all of these. I've already fallen once. Would I still fall a second time at the same spot? No. He had already suffered injuries from this one fall. If there was another time, he would really not be able to recover fully. Jiajia's temper was best described as the pupil surpassing the master. Jiajia usually didn't have any particularly big reactions as no one poked her in the ribs. If Jiajia really became anxious, her temper would only be worse than Zihua's. After receiving the Wei family's call, Wei Wei didn't look too good. Wei Xiaomei looked uneasy. "Xiao Wei, what did your grandparents say? How's your dad?" Ever since they returned to their hometown, Wei Xiaomei looked like she had lost her soul. Although she was the one who proposed to return to her hometown herself, Wei Xiaomei felt that she was at a loss when her closest son was not by her side. But when Wei Wei returned as well, Wei Xiaomei panicked even more. Didn't she sacrifice so much and suffer so many grievances so that her son could be well? How well could he be now that he had returned to the countryside? After that, the mother-son pair stayed in the countryside and waited for a call from Ping Cheng. They wanted to know an answer and wanted to confirm if Weida had succeeded in getting Zihua back. Wei Wei snorted coldly. "Mom, don't think about it. That aunt of mine has a bad temper. For her to forgive my uncle? That's the funniest joke I've ever heard. That call just now was from Grandpa. Based on what he's saying, the both of us have been abandoned. They couldn't suck up to my aunt, so they're preparing to lay a hand on Jiajia. You know how much Jiajia used to hate me. In order to please Jiajia, it's impossible for them to take a look at me again in front of her. To think that he was still the precious grandson of the Wei family and the Wei family's only hope a year ago. Wei Jiajia completely couldn't compare to him. It was just a few months, and the Wei family didn't even care about his remaining half a semester of studies and forced him to return to the countryside. It was very likely that he wouldn't be able to attend the college entrance examination in the end. Wei Wei had always been highly regarded by the Wei family in the past. Now, he suddenly experienced the feeling of falling into hell. Even a mature adult might not be able to accept such a huge change so quickly, let alone Wei Wei being a young boy who was not even in his 20s yet. Wei Wei knew that this time, he had really lost his father. What was different was that it wasn't his father who didn't want him. He was the one who didn't want his father. Upon knowing that Zihua wanted a divorce, the Wei family, who knew they had to rely on others to support themselves, felt that Jiajia was a way out and that he was now a pawn that could be discarded. They still expected him to support them when he grew up in the future? In their dreams. "Mom, I don't want to be someone like my aunt. No one from this group of people surnamed Wei is good. They have bullied us for so long and don't think it's enough. I don't think the Zai family is still willing to bother about them. Jiajia is not a fool either. When they realize this and are willing to accept this fact, they would definitely look for us to take care of them. Mom, I don't want to feel vexed by this. If they don't want me, I don't want them either. Mom, I'm already a grown-up. I'll have a way to earn money and support you. Mom, let's go." Wei Wei had changed. He hated the Wei family, especially when they asked him to return to the countryside this time with the excuse of revising so that he could better prepare for the college entrance examination. After this trip, Wei Wei suddenly learned of Wei Xiaomei's background. Not only did he have a father, but his mother also had parents. The old village chief was his grandfather. He and a widow had given birth to his mother. The old village chief said that ever since he left his mother at the door of the Wei family and the Wei family adopted his mother, the Wei family started to guess that his mother was the old village chief's daughter within 2 days and began to get some benefits from the old village chief. All these years, the Wei family seemed to be benevolent on the surface. Not only did they raise Wei Xiaomei, but they even let their son marry her. Otherwise, a person like Wei Xiaomei couldn't have married a young man like Wei De. Even if the Wei family was poor, Wei De was tall and muscular and looked upright. However, what was the reality? The old village chief had secretly bought and sent over all the food for Wei Xiaomei to the Wei family. If too many food items were missing at once, how would the old village chief's wife not find out? She wasn't blind. Also, the reason why Wei De could become a soldier back then was also because of Wei Xiaomei. The Wei family had pleaded with the old village chief for help. Back then, for Wei to become a soldier, his only request was to marry his daughter first. As long as a wedding banquet was held and Wei Xiaomei became Wei's woman, he would settle the matter for Wei without saying another word. After knowing the truth, Wei was so angry he almost died of anger. It turned out that his uncle was a real and thorough scumbag. First, he relied on his mother so that the Wei family could survive during difficult times. Then, he relied on his mother to become a soldier so that he could have the opportunity to meet Zihua. Zihua wasn't the first victim. The first victim should be his mother, and he was the second. If one counted seriously, then Zihua could only be considered the third. Compared to the grievances they suffered, Zihua's was nothing. All these years, he had spent quite a bit of Zihua's money, but he didn't feel that he was in the wrong. Chapter 1958, Rebellion. Wei had all the bad and wrong things. He and his mother were innocent. Even if they saw the Zai family in the future, he could walk past them with his head held up high. Wei knew about this truth. However, he didn't tell Wei Xiaomei as he didn't want to. He knew that the Wei family and that old village chief were bad. The old village chief really thought that the Wei family was leading a good life in Pingcheng and that his mother had accompanied him back to find a quiet learning environment to better prepare for this year's college entrance examination. Out of the 10 sentences that the old village chief said to him, 3 or 4 of them would emphasize and repeat how his mother wouldn't have been around today without him. If his mother wasn't around, it was even more impossible for his existence. One had to be grateful. Furthermore, he was his birth grandfather. When he was successful in the future, he had to respect and be filial to his birth grandfather. When he was capable in the future, he had to let him live the same or even better life than his grandfather in the city. Compared to his grandfather, he had sacrificed much more for him. Upon thinking about how similar the old village chief's words were to the Wei family, Wei wanted to laugh. It was their credit that he was successful. Whose credit was it then that he and his mother had been scolded, bullied, and rolled eyes at since they were young? They hoped that he would be successful in life and support them for their old age in the future as a means of repayment. He was already magnanimous enough if he didn't seek revenge from them. Go? Where to? Wei Xiaomei looked confused. In this lifetime, her life had always been like this. Even if she felt wronged in her heart, she wouldn't dare utter a sound. Who asked her to be a parentless child and had relied on the generosity of the Wei family for a living? You're still young. You're still a student who's going to take the college entrance examination this year. I don't have money and I don't know how to earn money. In the next half a year, you'll still be studying. I don't have the ability and I can't make you a university student. As she said this, Wei Xiaomei looked sad and inferior. Mom, stop dreaming. My uncle's not a soldier anymore. He's even expelled from the army. Do you think he can earn money now and let me go to university? You can't, but the Wei family can't either. From the call just now, what I heard is that my grandpa wants me to stop studying. He feels that I'm of age to work and support myself. Moreover, he could provide for them and even the entire Wei family. After leaving Zihua, the Wei family, who was used to enjoying life, was no longer willing to farm and earn their own living. They were still planning for him to work so that he could support them. He had a birth mother, whom he couldn't wait to provide for. Why should he provide for the heartless and cold-blooded Wei family? Did they treat him as Zihua? Mom, let's go. Anyway, I'll no longer have the opportunity to continue studying. I'm not willing to provide for the Wei family as I don't want to spend my hard-earned money on such people. Mom, leave with me. Don't be afraid. I'll provide for you in the future. Seeing her son's look of seriousness and persistence, Wei Xiaomei cried. What was different was that this time, Wei Xiaomei was no longer confused. She felt that her future was bleak and she couldn't see any hope at all. Wei was an unreliable man. She similarly always knew that the Wei family was unreliable. What she knew more was that she herself was also an unreliable person. However, that was fine. It was okay if none of them were reliable, as she now had a reliable son. A reliable son was more important than anyone else. Okay, Mom will leave with you. From now on, you'll be the decision maker of the family. I'll listen to whatever you say. They were all similarly surnamed Wei. Wei Wei's temper might not be any better than the Wei family's. Back when Weida and Zihua got married, Weida was still timid. As he was afraid that Zihua would find out about his relationship with Wei Xiaomei, he only fetched Father Wei and Mother Wei to Pingcheng and let Wei Xiaomei live alone in the countryside. Back then, Zihua and Weida had a good relationship. She doted on Weida's nephew like he was her own child. She knew that Wei Xiaomei grew up with Weida since young, and they were no different from a pair of siblings. They were both women. After knowing Wei Xiaomei's encounter, Zihua sympathized with Wei Xiaomei and suggested that Weida fetch her over from the countryside. The villagers knew about Wei Xiaomei's not-so-glorious past and Wei Wei's birth. On the contrary, the people from Pingcheng didn't understand the Wei family's situation. They felt that Wei Xiaomei might have a better life if she was fetched over from the countryside. Furthermore, Wei Xiaomei was still young. She couldn't possibly be left alone in the future just because of a scumbag, right? In short, fetching Wei Xiaomei over would be very helpful for her future. The more Zihua cared about Wei Xiaomei, the more Weida didn't dare to fetch Wei Xiaomei over. If Zihua placed too much attention on Wei Xiaomei and found out the relationship between him, Wei Xiaomei, and Wei Wei, then he had to get a divorce immediately after he had just married Zihua and become the Zai family's son-in-law. After finding a bunch of reasons to reject, Weida was afraid that Zihua would be unhappy. As such, he hurriedly suggested transferring their newly built 3-story house to Wei Xiaomei's name. In that case, Wei Xiaomei was like living in his own home. Her sense of belonging would be stronger, and they wouldn't be afraid of Wei Xiaomei suffering in the countryside. Zihua naturally didn't disagree with Weida's words. As such, the house Wei Xiaomei and Wei Wei were living in shouldn't be considered to be the Wei family's. It should be Wei Xiaomei's. All the procedures were done properly back then. It was, after all, a new marriage back then. Knowing that Zihua was concerned, how would Weida dare to play any tricks? In addition, after Zihua became the Wei family's daughter-in-law, the Wei family's life was getting better every day. They couldn't wait to enjoy life in the big city. How would they care about the days in the countryside? As such, as time passed, the Wei family had long forgotten to get the house back from Wei Xiaomei. Until now, the Wei family still hadn't remembered this incident. The Wei family didn't recall this, but Wei Wei found out about this situation after looking at the real estate certificate. They were going to leave soon. How would Wei Wei be willing to benefit the Wei family? This house was his mother's. It was right for him to sell it. After selling this house, he wouldn't have anything to do with the Wei family. Weida still wanted a son to provide for him and send him off on the day of his funeral. In his dreams, Wei Wei sold the Wei family's house in the countryside quickly. He couldn't do anything about the plots of farmland under Father Wei's name. After selling the house, and with the money on hand, Wei Wei left his hometown with Wei Xiaomei and went to live in another city without a second word. Chapter 1959, Everything was gone. He naturally didn't tell the Wei family what he did. It was only when Father Wei and Mother Wei returned to the countryside, saw that someone else was living in their house, and wanted to fight and snatch the house back did they find out that the ownership of the house was already transferred. When Mother Wei knew that the person who sold the house was her birth grandson and that after selling the house, Wei Wei brought Wei Xiaomei to somewhere they didn't know, she cried. It was just that Father Wei's and Mother Wei's crying was futile. It wasn't easy for them to return to their hometown. However, their decent 3-story house had nothing to do with their family anymore. Father Wei and Mother Wei didn't have a place to live in. Out of desperation, they went to find the old village chief, scolding him for partnering with Wei Xiaomei to cheat them of their Wei family's money. It was only because Father Wei and Mother Wei had kicked up a fuss did everyone know that Wei Xiaomei's birth father was the old village chief, even though the Wei family had picked her up and adopted her. No wonder Wei Da could become a soldier. The old village chief had helped out. All of a sudden, the shameless things the Wei family and the old village chief did over the past 10 years were exposed and their reputations were ruined. Upon receiving his mother's call, Wei Da's looks turned ugly when he heard her cries. His current situation was difficult enough. In order to continue living in Pingcheng and have the chance to get close to Zihua and Jiajia, the penniless and jobless Wei Da went to carry sandbags to earn some money out of desperation. While doing hard work and earning a meager salary, the place Wei Da could afford in Pingcheng was no bigger than the small house that Qiaonan initially rented. A few months ago, Wei Da was still looking down on Qiaonan. Who knew that in just a few months, his situation became the same as Qiaonan's 2 months ago? What was different was that it wasn't that Qiaonan didn't know how to earn money, but that her hard-earned money was taken away by the Qiao family. As for him, aside from being a coolie, it was either that he couldn't do other jobs or the bosses didn't fancy him and were unwilling to hire him. Wei Da's life in Pingcheng was tough and he was struggling. Who knew that he would hear such an earth-shattering piece of news when he made a call back to his hometown? Ade, Xiao Wei and Wei Xiaomei are really ingrates. Both of them obviously know what kind of situation our family is in. They still dared to sell the house behind our backs. You don't know that for the past 2 days, your father and I have been living in the unwanted temple on the mountain. Ade, you can't leave us alone. If this continues, the both of us wouldn't be able to continue living. We can't survive. Previously, they had to leave the prosperous Pingcheng. But when they returned home, they didn't even have a house to live in and had to stay in the broken temple for a couple of nights. Every morning when she woke up, Mother Wei would pray that everything was just a nightmare and that when she opened her eyes, all the nightmares would be over. It was a pity that the piece of ruins before them and the occasional sound of rustling caused by rats running around at night told Mother Wei that it wasn't a nightmare. How could there be such a real nightmare? Mom, don't cry. I know about this. I'll think of a solution. Wei Da boasted, but he completely didn't know where his solution would come from. He could still survive these couple of days because there were some unused medical expenses provided by Zihua back then since he came out of the hospital ahead of time. Initially, with this amount of money, Wei Da was reluctant to find a better place to live in or find an opportunity to start up a small business. Now that this situation happened in his hometown, Wei Da no longer had to think about keeping this amount of money. He couldn't possibly watch his parents die, right? Furthermore, it was difficult to start a business with this small amount of money in his hands. It might also not be enough to get a place for his parents in the countryside. Father Wei asked Wei Da about the situation. Ade, this house is obviously our family's. Wei, that little rascal, sold the house behind our backs. Can we also file a lawsuit and get that house back? As for money or whatever else, ask those people to demand it from Wei, that little rascal. That house belonged to the Wei family and had nothing to do with Wei Xiaomei. Their family had even provided for Wei Xiaomei. Since young, she didn't go to work or earn money. Where did Wei Xiaomei and Wei have the guts and confidence to snatch away their house? How shameless! If Zihua could file a lawsuit and get a divorce from his son, then they could also file a lawsuit since Wei Xiaomei and Wei had sold the house behind their backs. If those people couldn't get their money back from Wei, then they deserved it. Who asked them to mix around with Wei and buy things from him? At this moment, Father Wei almost regarded Wei as an enemy. He only wished to get the house back through legal means. Father Wei didn't care if the buyer found Wei trouble or if they couldn't find Wei and lost both their house and money. He only wanted to give those people who struck a man when he was down a lesson. Of course, the best result was that these people caught Wei and gave him a beating. Father Wei expressed that he still had Jiajia, a capable and promising granddaughter. The ingrate, Wei Wei didn't need to think of stepping into the Wei family's house again. If he saw Wei Wei in the future, he would definitely break his legs. Wei De rubbed his temples. Nobody would have guessed that Wei Wei would take such a drastic measure. I don't think we can. Why? Wei Wei and Wei Xiaomei were obviously the ones who stole and sold their house. On what basis couldn't they get the house back? Didn't the law protect our people? Our house got snatched away. Why can't we get it back? That's because more than 10 years ago, the name on that house's real estate certificate was Wei Xiaomei. It was no longer one of ours. Father Wei and Mother Wei might have forgotten, but Wei De still remembered. Back then, Wei Xiaomei didn't want to find another partner. She only wanted to protect her son and stay by Wei De's side. As such, it wasn't a big deal to transfer the house to Wei Xiaomei's name. After all, she had given birth to a grandson for the Wei family. Wei Xiaomei deserved this house. Things given to Wei Xiaomei were also Wei Wei's. Wei Wei's things naturally belonged to the Wei family. They were a family. It was just a matter of transferring from one pocket to another. Wei De didn't mind at all whose name was stated on the real estate certificate. However, the situation today came too suddenly and unexpectedly. Who knew that Wei Xiaomei, who was so devoted to him, would dare to betray him and leave him? Before leaving, she even sold what little things the Wei family was left with. Chapter 1960, Find the Real Estate Certificate. Thankfully, in order to coax Zihua back then, they only transferred the house to Wei Xiaomei. Those plots of farmland were still in his father's name. Otherwise, when his parents returned this time, not only would the house change owners, but the plots of farmland would as well. Wei De didn't doubt this at all. Indeed, Wei Wei was an ingrate. Wei Wei obviously knew what situation the Wei family was in, but he still dared to do so. Of course, Wei De wouldn't be so naive to think that Wei Wei would still want to be family with them. By doing this, Wei Wei was making a clean break with the Wei family. Everyone kicks a man who is down. Wasn't the reason why Zihua no longer had feelings for him and had gotten a divorce so simply because he had treated Wei Wei better than Jia and she was thus disappointed? Now, it looked like this was how Wei Wei repaid him. If there was a day he became successful again, not only would he not pay attention to Wei Wei again, but he would also return everything Wei Wei had done to him then. He would use his capabilities to tell Wei Wei that if he could be successful once, he could be successful twice. However, as long as anyone betrayed him once, he was not going to give the other party a second chance. When he made it big in life, he could have as many sons as he wished, let alone women. If Wei Wei thought he could act recklessly as he was his only son, then he was going to let Wei Wei understand what was known as the cruel reality. At this moment, sons and daughters meant nothing to Wei De. No wonder there was an old saying that a close son was no better than money. Indeed, when it came to critical moments like these, a son was useless. As his son mentioned this, Father Wei remembered that the house was long under Wei Xiaomei's name. However, our family forked out all the money to build the house. Wei Xiaomei and the old village chief didn't contribute anything at all. They didn't pay any money. The house is ours. The homestead is ours too. On what basis could they be sold by Wei Wei, that little rascal? Homestead. Upon hearing this word, Wei De had an idea. Dad, do this with Mom tomorrow. Indeed, the name on the real estate certificate is Wei Xiaomei. However, the homestead still belongs to our family. Back then, I didn't give the homestead to Wei Xiaomei. As such, Wei Wei can sell the house but not the homestead. Based on this situation, our family can still earn another sum of money. You and Mom use this amount of money to buy a small house first. Generally, no one would sell the homestead. However, the house no longer belonged to their family and they couldn't let the other party remove the house from their homestead. The cotter in the village had to be adjusted. Wei De wasn't sure how much money could be obtained from the homestead. Thankfully, there was this sum of money. He didn't need to worry about his parents' future livelihoods. It could be considered that this was the solution to their family's urgent needs. Okay. I've remembered whatever you said. I'll not let anyone take advantage of our family so casually. It was good that there was an idea. Father Wei was most afraid of his son not having ideas. Their family was like a headless fly. The Zai family didn't expect that the Wei family's situation would become so bad. After the divorce, the Zai family simply left the Wei family at the back of their minds, thinking that they would no longer be related to the Wei family. The divorced Zai Hua felt relaxed and she coincidentally returned from outside. Upon thinking of Chiao Nan, Zai Hua decided to walk to the Chiao family's courtyard. Zai Sheng liked Chiao Nan. The marriage was probably going to happen soon. The people who lived in the Chiao family's courtyard would more or less be related to their family in the future. Even if it was for Zai Sheng, her brother, she had to be concerned a little. Zai Hua didn't enter the Chiao family's courtyard and just went around it. However, even if that was the case, she could still hear the dispute from the Chiao family's courtyard. Where are you going? Chiao Dongliang's voice was somewhat suppressed and he seemed to be holding back his anger. Compared to Chiao Dongliang's forbearance, Ding Jiyi's voice was more hysterical. Where are we going? You gave the house to that wretched girl who has no conscience. Where else can I go? Of course I'm going to get the real estate certificate back. When our family was having difficult times and Zijin was about to die, that unscrupulous girl took away our family's money. That was Zijin's life-saving money, but she ran away with it and had a carefree life. Now, she even had the cheek to take our family's real estate certificate. I'm going to ask her where her confidence came from. If I had known she was going to be such a bloodsucker, I should have strangled her to death when I gave birth to her then. Doesn't she know how difficult our family situation is? How can she accept the real estate certificate? She's obviously trying to force us to our deaths. An ungrateful thing like her would definitely have her retribution sooner or later. Serves her right for being 40 years old now but without a partner. She's not married yet and doesn't even have a child. Wait and see. When she's old, she wouldn't even have someone taking care of her. She would definitely sleep on the bridges and be an old beggar. Nobody will take care of her funeral when she's dead. This is her retribution for abandoning her family, ignoring her birth sister's life and death, and snatching away everything from our family. God will not spare her. Ding Jiyi couldn't wait to use the most vicious curses in the world on Chiao Nan and use the ugliest words to scold her. In order to maintain the harmony of this family, Ding Jiyi had to protect Chiao Zijin's interests. She was going to secretly find the real estate certificate and transfer it to Chiao Zijin behind Chiao Dongliang's back so that he wouldn't be unhappy when he found out. Who knew that it had already been a week since Ding Jiyi carefully looked through the corners of the small courtyard thrice. She even flipped over all the pockets of the old clothes that belonged to the family of 3. However, she didn't manage to find the real estate certificate. The desperate Ding Jiyi realized that she was only short of digging 3 feet of land to turn their house into a plot of farmland. As such, Ding Jiyi couldn't help but wonder if the real estate certificate was at home. If it was impossible that she couldn't find it. She had searched everywhere. There was only one home. How could there be a good place to hide things at home which she didn't know about? After searching to this extent but not finding it, Ding Jiyi could only suspect that Chiao Dongliang placed the real estate certificate somewhere outside their home. Ding Jiyi fretted. There were so many places outside their home. What place was safe to Chiao Dongliang so that the real estate certificate wouldn't be lost but not within her reach?